Welcome to the Explainer. If you've ever stared at a language textbook and thought, man, this is just an exhausting, endless memory game, trust me, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're taking a really fantastic study guide and transforming it into clear, actionable steps. We're going to break down exactly how you can conquer that leap into high school English. We're moving away from stressing over tests and toward real, vibrant connection.
So it brings up a huge question. Is English just a subject you have to memorize? A lot of students feel completely overwhelmed by the jump from the rote memorization of junior high to the actual spontaneous communication they expect from you in high school. The texts get longer, the audio is way faster, and suddenly you have to express your own opinions. But throughout this explainer, we're going to show you why that frustration is completely normal and exactly how to fix it by just shifting how you view the language itself.
All right, here's our roadmap for today. 1. Memorization to usable communication. 2. The architecture of sentences. 3. Smart reading and listening. 4. Building usable vocabulary. And finally, 5. The art of real conversation.
Let's dive right into Section 1, Memorization to Usable Communication, Shifting the Mindset.
Think about that leap from junior high. Back then, you might write something like, I like music. And hey, that's a great, grammatically correct sentence. But high school English isn't necessarily about learning impossibly hard new grammar rules. Actually, it's more about learning how to add your reasons, your details, and your personal feelings to that basic foundation. So it becomes, I like music because it helps me relax. See the difference? You're no longer just making a correct sentence. You're communicating a piece of who you are.
Which brings us to an absolutely crucial point. The aim is not perfect English. The aim is usable English. Having a weakness in English isn't some fixed character trait. It's literally just a set of skills waiting to be trained. It's about taking small, imperfect steps, like, just finding the verb in a sentence or catching a single word in a listening track. Those little steps are exactly how you build the skills to actually connect with the world.
Moving on to Section 2, The Architecture of Sentences, English as Building Blocks.
I want you to think of a sentence like a physical building. The subject and the verb, well, they're the absolute core pillars. If you could find these pillars, you understand how the whole building stands. Now, unlike Japanese, where particles tell you the meaning no matter what order the words are in, English meaning depends entirely on word order. If you mess with the order carelessly, the whole building collapses. So, your absolute first job when looking at any sentence is finding that subject and that verb.
Once you have the pillars, you start noticing the mathematical logic of the 5 basic sentence patterns. This is basically your blueprint for reading and writing. And this isn't just some boring grammar label for a test. Every single sentence, no matter how ridiculously complicated it looks, boils right down to one of these 5 structures. When you start seeing these patterns, English stops looking like a random jumble of words and starts looking like a highly organized map.
Okay, but what happens when you encounter a massive, intimidating sentence? The kind that just makes you want to panic? Well, you just follow a few simple steps to break it apart into manageable chunks. First, find those pillars, the subject and the verb. Then, mentally put brackets around the extra details, like prepositional phrases or relative clauses. Next, check for connection words like because or but. And suddenly, that massive, scary sentence is really just a short idea with some extra decorations attached. You just read it in those small meaning groups.
That takes us right into Section 3, Smart Reading and Listening. Stop translating everything.
Seriously, you have to stop translating word for word backwards. The old way of jumping all the way to the end of a sentence just to create a perfect Japanese translation, it's incredibly slow and it completely falls apart the second you try to listen to someone speaking in real time. True comprehension only happens when you follow the English order from left to right. You just process the information exactly as it appears in small, natural meaning groups.
And this mindset shift beautifully transitions over to listening. Think of spoken English as lights in a dark room. The stressed content words, your nouns, main verbs, adjectives, numbers, they carry the main meaning. They're the lights shining brightly. The smaller grammar words, they just kind of fade into the background because sounds connect and change in natural speech. In natural spoken English, you don't need to catch every single word. You just need to listen for those bright, stressed lights to illuminate what the sentence means.
To actually train your ears for this, you can use a simple 3-step listening method. On the first listen, just try to catch the overall topic. Are they talking about school? Maybe a weekend plan? Then, on the second listen, try to catch the key information and those bright, stressed words. Finally, on the third listen, that's when you check for specific details. By doing this, you're accepting partial understanding at first.
And let me tell you, that drastically reduces your anxiety and naturally trains your ears over time.
All right, on to Section 4, building usable vocabulary, turning words into knowledge.
The real secret sauce here is something called collocation. Because learning words one by one, it's highly inefficient. You really must learn them in clusters to unlock your vocabulary. Think of it this way. Words have natural partners that they just love to hang out with. When you learn these word partners together, your speech and your writing immediately sound so much clearer, way more natural, and much more fluent.
Take a look at these high-value collocations. If you only memorize the noun, you're gonna get stuck on the verb. For instance, if you directly translate the Japanese idea for homework, you might end up incorrectly saying make homework. But if you memorize the cluster as a single unit, you'll naturally just say do homework. The exact same goes for give a speech or ask a question. Learn the cluster, and honestly, the language does the heavy lifting for you.
But you know what happens when a hard word just completely vanishes from your mind? You know the feeling. Well, you paraphrase. It proves that if a super formal phrase like contribute to environmental protection totally blanks on you, just using simple English like help protect the environment creates incredibly strong, effective communication. Simple English really gives you the control.
And that brings us to our final section. Section 5, the art of real conversation, connecting through English.
I want you to burn this concept right into your memory. A conversation is not a place for perfect English. Seriously, if you wait until your grammar is absolutely flawless, you are never going to speak. Conversation is a shared activity. It's built on simple human connection, not some perfect, error-free performance. It is entirely about understanding and being understood, even if it gets a little messy.
So how do we keep that messy, beautiful connection alive? By asking questions. Keeping a conversation going relies almost entirely on asking simple follow-up questions. That's what prevents those awkward silences where you just get one-word answers. If someone says they like tennis, don't just say, oh. Ask them, how often do you play? Or even simply, how about you? Questions are the fuel that keeps the whole interaction moving forward.
And what happens when you just completely lose the thread of the conversation? Simple. You ask them to repeat it. Asking someone to repeat themselves is absolutely not a failure of your language skills. These short phrases are vital, natural tools for keeping the dialogue alive. Even native speakers use them constantly. Saying, sorry, could you say that again? Is a sign that you are engaged and trying. It doesn't mean you failed.
So, the crucial point we keep coming back to is this. Mistakes are not proof that you cannot learn English. Mistakes simply show what you need to practice next. If you accidentally say, he plays soccer instead of he plays, the listener still knows exactly what you mean. Your errors are literally just stepping stones guiding your personal study plan. So you've got to embrace them as physical proof of your progress.
Remember, you really don't need to master everything all at once. English grows through these very small, highly manageable steps. You don't need to write a massive paragraph today. Just start with one clear sentence. Find one key stressed word in an audio track. Ask one simple follow-up question. Write down one single idea. That, right there, is how fluency is truly built over time. Ultimately, English is just a tool to open another window in your mind. It's a way to connect with people, ideas, and cultures all around the world. So, take what you've learned from this explainer, embrace the beautifully imperfect journey, and just start communicating. You can start with just one sentence. So what will you say today?